Hello, this is Julie
And this is Nick.
with Toad Town, and this is week 3 of having Red Ranger chickens. So this week we started to turn the chicks' heat lamps off depending on the weather. The weather has been fluctuating a little bit, so some days it'll be up to in the 60s, some days, actually on Saturday, it hit just over 80 degrees. So we ended up removing the second heat lamp that was in their brooder on Friday because as we are in there feeding them, giving them fresh water, it was just in the way and we hadn't turned it on in a few days and figured that they will be fine without it and just having the one heat lamp.
So today is Sunday, and with yesterday being quite warm, we decided to give them the entire chicken tractor, partly to make it easier for us to get in and out, and partly to just give them more space and let them cool down and get a little more cross breeze through the area. But we also noticed that a couple times, at least one or two of the chicks were trying to kind of see what's on the other side of the cardboard barrier. We were afraid one of them might be able to jump over and would get stuck on the other side.
Yeah, so they were just starting to do this a lot more running and flapping, and with that running and flapping, they started to get a bit more air and were more capable of jumping higher.
Well, even stationary jumping, they seem to be doing it more. There was a couple times where the heat lamp would start swinging, and finally caught one of them trying to attack their reflection in the heat lamp. They're definitely eating more now and drinking quite a bit more. You see we have the top off of the flip-top trough feeder, and of course they like to sit in it, and they're not making as much of a mess as they were before. They really seem to like the open feeder design over the other larger feeder, which has kind of plastic spacers so that they can't kind of scratch in there. We were going to make a 4-inch PVC trough feeder for when they're on the pasture and hang that from the chicken tractor, but it was pretty expensive to get just 10 feet of PVC, so we actually had this spare bit of vinyl gutter that our previous homeowners had graciously left us. So what I ended up doing was just kind of cutting slits on the end of it, and then with a heat gun bending the vinyl up, and then in the end I just put a bolt through that just to make sure it didn't separate, and they've really been enjoying it.
Along similar lines, as far as their feed goes, we've been feeding them some more greens throughout the week. They've been scratching at the ground a lot more. They seem to want to forage a lot more. So we have been supplementing their feed with clover and dandelion greens and other more broadleafed greens that we have throughout our yard, which are the same greens that they would be eating when they're outside. I've also been trying to look for invertebrates to feed them, so things like slugs and beetles and ants, they seem to really enjoy chasing down and consuming. They are a lot more feathered out this week, so I would say we could have put them outdoors this week had the weather been different. However, it has been very rainy after a long dry spell, so we need the rain, but we would like to avoid introducing them to the outdoors when it's raining because we have heard from multiple chicken owners that that is not a good idea to put them outdoors for the first time when it's on and off raining. And also, we have some forecasted lows next week in the 30s and 40s, which is definitely not ideal for putting them outside for their first week or even first few days. So our goal is to have them outside by next Sunday or even that following Monday. So some observations we've had along the way this week. we've noticed that when it's become a bit warm and toasty in there, that they start to attempt to dust bathe. So they kind of nestle their bodies down into the pine shavings and flap their wings. Obviously, not very successfully dust bathing because it's just very fine shavings.
And of course, the other chicks come over to investigate and start pecking off the little pine shavings that are on their back.
Yeah. So we have our Two-Face and Runt updates. So as a refresher, they're both the birds that we inadvertently named. One, Two-Face, has a little bit of an eye issue that we're not sure what's going on. And then the Runt just doesn't seem to be full-sized. So Two-Face seems to still has a little bit of a watery eye. But he or she seems to have become the most tame of the chicks, or at least the least skittish. He or she does not run away when we are putting new feed in their feeder or filling up their water, and I've discovered that it doesn't mind as much being picked up. Since it sticks around, I kind of stick my hand out and pick it up. Still doesn't really like being picked up, but it is the least skittish. I'm not sure how that happened.
Well, I think maybe because we had taken it out of the chicken tractor 2 or 3 times to try and clean up around the eye a little bit. It must have just gotten used to us. The Runt, surprisingly, has also been showing up as the most brave and most interested in the outside world. We come up to the door of the chicken tractor, he's usually the first one to run up and kind of just look at what's going on. Even if we open the door, he's usually the last one to run away besides Two-Face. So it's been pretty funny to see the smallest one become the bravest one.
So another observation this week is we attempted to film them from ground level. However, I set up the camera and walked away, and Nick noticed that they had pecked the camera to the ground and were pretty much attacking it. So it was not possible to film them from ground level this week, just because of possibly, one, their curiosity, and two, this is an unusual looking chick in our enclosure and we're not happy about it. So new camera angle this week from a little bit more above eye level and inaccessible area for them. Since they are getting bigger, they've discovered that they can now perch on top of / in the tower feeder. Not the best thing ever.
At least one, if not two, have kind of realized that they can flap their wings a little more hard and jump on up there and be king of the hill of that feeder, but then they have a little bit of a hard time jumping down, kind of trip off rather than gracefully jump off.
And one funny thing that happened this week is Monday, one of them found the tiniest little twig, probably from the pine shavings, and they all started chasing that chick with the twig, and then that chick would drop it and next chick would pick it up, and they were chasing each other around the enclosure for a good 5 or 10 minutes, just passing off this twig. Just a little entertaining. So that wraps up week 3 of our Red Ranger chickens. Hopefully next week we will be able to provide the update from outside.
Thanks for watching.